Suavemente bésame, porque quiero sentir tus labios besándome otra vez. Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm your host, Dieter Burrow, and in today's episode, we're going to be showing you guys a cool video that came up. Now, this is serious stuff. CBS News Sunday Morning had a news report about home designs to resist wildfire, and in today's episode, I want to show you guys some interesting information that FEMA actually had a while back that I want to share with you guys. So stay tuned. Okay guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I wanted to kind of do a reaction video to this post that I caught from CBS News Sunday Morning. They were talking about home design to resist wildfires. Now, I'm going to kind of play some of the video here for us to look at, but I'm going to stop it here and there, and I'm going to interject some details where I came across a guideline that FEMA had created. Now, it's been a little while since I saw this, but I'm going to give you guys some more information as we get into this video. So check this out.
Now a tale of paradise lost. You may recall the wildfire that all but destroyed Paradise, California in 2018. Well, the town is slowly building back, but this time Ben Tracy shows us with wildfires.
Now, this is some serious stuff, and I take it to heart when I have clients that reach out to me and they ask me to help them when it comes to their homes. Now, I get a lot of, in the past, I've been doing this for almost 20 plus years. When I hear contractors say that the architects is gold plating certain things, we really are not. It's just not typical cost saving solutions that they're so used to seeing and accepting and passing that on to the owner. And every time we bring up the point of, hey, is there a savings? Tell the owner what the savings is, and they end up coming back. Every time they say it's going to cost more, when they come back and they tell us it's going to cost more, they end up saying $400, $600, $1,200, $500. The impression is that the client comes back and they're thinking that there's a savings of $50 to $70 to $100,000 when there isn't none. So, grain of salt. Let's listen.
In mind.
On the road to paradise, you can see signs of a comeback. And if you want to hear what that sounds like,
man, you find everything you need okay?
All you have to do is visit the only hardware store in town.
If I ever get a house, I'm going to have these.
We're working on getting ours almost done. We're maybe a month away, so.
Mike Peterson manages this Ace hardware store that somehow survived the worst fire in California history. But like most people here, Peterson lost it.
This is pretty sad, guys, and I remember catching some of this on the news when it was actually happening, and I thought it was horrific how a lot of the houses that did not survive in this area and lives. I mean, I kind of get that PTSD of, I think, hurricane survivors, and I'm not going to say that I have that from military because I'm not military, but I think everybody has that post-traumatic syndrome where they kind of, something triggers it and you relive it. And I can only phantomly just imagine these folks, what they went through when these fires destroyed their homes.
His home.
A year ago, these 3 homes here weren't there.
Now, when he looks out at his neighborhood, he sees all the skeptics being proven wrong.
I think a lot of people had their doubts about how many people would rebuild. It's nice to see the progress, for sure.
Rebuilding this town nestled in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada was far from certain after paradise was lost to the inferno known as the campfire.
I was kind of watching a lot of these videos, and I was noticing, kind of going back and forth from the FEMA guideline. I'm gonna show you guys some clips of the FEMA guideline, which I'm gonna pull up. The FEMA guideline touches on a bunch of topics when it comes to placement of home, where the winds can kind of redirect embers, and how close are trees to your house, where you keep your debris. Do you keep your gutters clean? Do you keep your pipes covered? What kind of windows? The roofing system. That guideline talks about all kinds of stuff, and I just don't want it to appear, to the average Joe that there's only one type of construction, which is this gentleman's type of building that he's designing is the only solution. But check it out here.
The 2018 blaze killed 85 people and destroyed nearly 20,000 homes and businesses.
So the old house sat here.
Peterson is not only rebuilding, he's building something he hopes will survive any future fires.
Do you feel like you're going to worry less about your home?
Yes, and my insurance company loves it.
He and his wife are about to move into this 2-bedroom house that looks a bit like a modern barn. They like the architect.
Now, just check this out, and I think I've seen this type of structure because there's a structure here in Pensacola. It's a store that they sell antique furniture and all kinds of antique stuff, and it is a corrugated roof system that spans all the way across the whole area of the space. Now, the one thing that we tend to forget, if you end up having anything that's above ground that's combustible adjacent to the building and it starts catching fire, now remember, just so that you're aware, steel melts, steel flexes. Embers may not catch it. It may not catch on fire, but if there's something that's combustible that's adjacent to metal will quickly flex and bend and deform to whatever shape it's the weakest route it's going to take. So when it comes to heavy timber and wood, yes, it is combustible, but they do make materials and they make coatings that prevent timber from burning quicker. So when timber burns, it tends to migrate towards the center, depending on where its worst case scenario is, and it takes more time for that heavy timber or that wood to burn into. Now, when they talk about non-combustible, it's if you got a lighter to it. Now, there is a point that it melts. It just doesn't burn and stay non-burning. But a lot of the times, what I was seeing when we were driving through the blaze of fire, is like the temperatures in there. It wasn't just the fire, but it was the heat, the ambient heat that was being created by the trees. That was critical.
But the real selling point is that it's built not to burn.
It's non-combustible. It's a product that you can't...
There is nothing in this world that doesn't burn. There is actually even metal begins to burn after a certain amount and it melts. So just grain of salt.
Can't really light on fire.
Vern Sneed is the owner of...
That's partially not 100% true that it can't burn. There is some level of heat that metal will melt and it actually will burn.
Design Horizons, a company building what it calls the Q Cabin, short for Quonset hut. It takes its name from Quonset Point, a naval facility in Rhode Island where these corrugated metal-roofed buildings were first made during World War II. Sneed says today's version costs about the same as a house built with conventional 2x4s.
So none of this can burn.
Correct. So we would have a
temporary housing. If you go look at the history on a lot of this, they needed something to create semi-permanent structures, but it was for temporary use. It wasn't for permanent use. And if you go look back at the 1950s and 60s, anything that was permanent, it was concrete poured. We went to I used to work in a lot of military installations, and everything that they did was robust. Extra concrete, extra steel. We actually have experience. I have experience having renovated barracks, and those things don't go down easily. So check it out. Grain of salt.
A non-combustible siding out here. Then we've got our non-combustible sheathing. Then we've got our non-combustible structure. So you would have to get through all of these non-combustible layers before you got to the inside.
Scientists say most homes ignite in wildfires because embers get into window frames or in between roof shingles. With the Q cabin, those entry points don't exist.
Did you guys catch that? Ambers. Ambers are the ones that create the issues. So if you have combustible materials on the outside of your building, vinyl most likely, or wood that burn easily, you're more likely to catch your building on fire. If you don't clean your area, if you don't rake, debris around the house, these are the things that are going to trigger these, situations.
And so I understand why you won't call this fireproof, because you can never guarantee that. But this is about as close as you're going to get.
This is about as close as you can get.
Of course, getting too close to nature.
Now that when they talk about that, there is a lingo that's used in commercial construction where they talk the wording as non-combustible. And yes, steel and anything that's made out of metal, gypsum products are non-combustible. What we've encountered in the past when we want to increase the rating of structural members, we have two solutions. We either do a coating that covers the steel to keep it from burning. Now that keeps it from burning, getting the heat getting to it. Now, if the temperature rises to a certain point, it is going to flex, and once it flexes, failure occurs and the building collapses. And I think you might as well have that's catastrophic failure at that point. So again, grain of salt. Certain words that are being used, just pick and choose.
Nature is part of the problem. Communities like Paradise are known as the wildland-urban interface, where the great outdoors collides with someone's front door.
We need to go.
Nearly 50.
That's a perfect example. That tree that fell down. How many trees are sitting around? Were sitting around a lot of those houses that came down close to or created more fire for your neighbors or a house to kind of catch on fire. Given a lot of the housing that's being built, even my house, I use shingles. Shingles, what's the shingle made out of? Asphalt. Burns. So again, grain of salt.
50 million U.S. homes are now in these areas, which are prone to wildfires.
When you see all of the natural disasters, especially a state like...
Look at this image, and you tell me how close were those houses to adjacent trees, and how close those houses were to the adjacent house, where a product like a shingle or some burning material was easily carried by wind, because what happens with heat, it goes up, hot air goes up, so there's air movement created. They actually, have heard that they call them fire cyclones or something like that, and you can have, you can create catastrophic situations where your house could be made out of concrete, but because you have two or three other houses that are adjacent to your house, you have just your house is sitting in a tunnel of hot air.
This is facing and what we know is coming as climate change accelerates. Is this the future of home building?
I think non-combustible housing is the future.
The campfire left behind more than burned trees and empty lots. It also transformed a lot of the...
Bet smartly. Smart, non-combustible. Smart.
People here.
I think people just let go of their need to control, because we all learned that there is no such thing.
It's so exciting.
Gwen Nordgren is...
Okay, guys, I'm going to stop the video right here, and because the rest of it doesn't really kind of touch on it. There is a human factor to this video, and as much as it hurts me, having lived through, having gone through a hurricane, being in Florida, it hurts me to see people having to suffer through things. Well, here I want to kind of pop up this is the FEMA guideline that it's a technical fact sheet series for home builders. It's a home builder's guide to construction in wildfire zones. Now, I actually referenced this one because I was interested in how FEMA, after having done studies and studies of actually how buildings were actually burning down and how fire was jumping from one building to the other. And it's interesting. You don't know what you catch. You can go to the www.fema.org and you can find a multitude. I mean, here, because we're in Florida, I reference a lot of the FEMA guidelines, not only for floods, but I look at fires, I look at hurricane, I look at tornadoes. They have tornado shelters. They have procedures for communities, in wildfire areas. Now, I won't touch up on that because it can get overwhelming. Now, what I did was I kind of started looking at it, and there are 17, well, not technically 17 fact sheets, but there are 17 fact sheets that touch on different topics, and I want to kind of just touch on just kind of real quick go through this. Now, you have selecting the construction site, and you got defensible space, which kind of talks about your surrounding area next to your house, roofs, construction, solutions, methodologies to kind of implement, eaves and overhangs and soffits, how to prevent any sort of heat or any sort of amber kind of getting into the house from the soffit, materials, exterior wall, type of construction. Now, I don't know if you guys saw that first cover, but we're talking about 2008. I mean, it's been around for a long, long time, and those guidelines are there to assist people. Now, people don't know where to go for this kind of stuff, and there's a lot of, I'm going to say it, home designers that don't know this kind of stuff because they're not exposed in the spectrum of commercial construction to a multitude of different types of design. So I've encountered it because I've kind of done a lot of commercial type of constructions and Department of Defense buildings, with certain requirements that they have to meet. Okay, so now they have fact sheet number 8 that talks about venting. How you have the gable end vents, and you have ridge cap vents, and you got soffit vents, any sort of venting, gutters and downspouts. They tell you how to avoid having your gutters with all this debris in it. I'm as guilty as the next person. I don't do maintenance, and I think what FEMA ever so slightly touches on is you have to have a level of maintenance when you live in the woods. When you live in areas where you're going to have potential fires. It's like living close to living in the close to the ocean. You have a house on the beach, and you think it's I'm just going to live on the beach and not worry about anything. But things begin to break down. I mean, human-made products don't last forever, and you always have to be maintaining them. I think it's critical. Windows and skylights, the type of materials that they're made out of, protection. And believe it or not, I came across some imagery in there, and I didn't get into the weeds of it just because, this video would be extremely long if I started getting into the weeds of this guideline. But you guys can go check it out. You can rewind and go check out, go to the FEMA website. There may be a latest and greatest of these guides. Now, they talk about double pane windows, and they kind of give you some percentage of time based on heat. and they talk about protecting it with literally almost the same type of impact corrugated panels that we use here in Florida to prevent the heat from cracking and breaking the glass, because glass is going to shatter to some degree. Exterior doors, the type of door, the type of glass that's being used, is it combustible, non-combustible, which one's the best? Foundations, when they talk about foundations, talk about like ventilation, when you have elevated slabs, how to prevent, embers or fire or anything to kind of get underneath the house. They actually talk about providing even a layer of gypsum sheets under wood construction, which it's like in some cases it is a little more economical to build with wood than it is to have the whole entire slab poured. But if you're going to be building out there, think of your house as a natural structure, and not given concrete is not, but closest to stone is concrete. So and that's man-made. So grain of salt. Decks and outdoor other attached structures, that's something they talk about to be critical of. Types of woods, avoiding potential open crawl spaces under decks. The type of wood, fire resistant woods, the thickness of woods to talk about, railing, a few other items to talk about. Landscaping, fencing, and walls. They talk a little bit about how those things can impact your house, especially when they're adjacent or touching your house, how they can actually create, the potential or a weak point, in your defense. And now in that video that we saw from that CBS Morning News, they didn't show any fencing because the building was still under construction. But as time goes by, you're going to have fences. People are going to want to have their privacy. So you have to be critical as to what type of fencing you want to use. I would say steel may be the next best thing, but there are solutions to that. Fire sprinkling. Now, everybody tells me, and I think I've had some pros and cons when it comes to that. When it comes to I think I had a conversation with a client one time where they said, oh yeah, the insurance companies don't like fire sprinkling. And in some cases, because when the fire sprinkler activates, it damages the building even more. But there are pros and cons, because when you have your building and it's sprinkled, and I had this conversation with a fire chief, was your building being sprinkled, if it starts catching on fire, it is more likely to slow down the fire that burns the house next door. And it gives it, because people, fire chiefs, and the biggest concern is not for the insurance company, it's the building. But for us, it's not more the building than it is the people inside the building. So the sprinkler system kicks on and is dousing your building, and it activated because it smelled or it caught some fire or something. It is to help you, give you some time to get out of the building, to save a life. It is intended to save a life. It is not intended to prevent the building from burning completely. The building, once the building starts catching on fire, it's gonna burn, especially if you didn't catch it when it was really small with a I don't know, like a fire extinguisher or something like that. When that system kicks on, it's because there's a big fire. The sprinkler heads are on your ceiling, so the fire by then it's already touched your ceiling. So that means that there's some serious fires. Utilities and exterior equipment. Making sure that penetrations, pipes, gas tanks, things that are above ground are designed so that they're kept underground. They're protected. They're insulated. Maybe they're insulated with a fire-resistant jacket. If there's pipes exposed, something that's going to reduce. Now again, it's going to slow down something from catching on fire. So there's an opportunity to run and save yourself. There is no such thing as a building that will never burn. It is so economically not feasible. It's not feasible to build a building that's pure concrete. Now you could, no doubt about it, because there are some buildings out there, and I could create a video about a company that does concrete roof, walls, everything. So community infrastructures. Now this one kind of talks a little bit more about, you know, the way the roads are set up, the way you know, to have turnabouts for fire trucks, and you know, how to pipe, you know, fire hydrants to areas where there typically aren't, from lakes. You know, again, we can get into the weeds of it, but I didn't want to do that. What I wanted to kind of just do is real briefly introduce you to the Home Builder's Guide for construction wildfires. Now, this image kind of touches on a few things. I'm going to kind of make this one a little bigger for everybody to look at. Now, this image is really good because it kind of touches on all the things that we are talking about. The building envelope, roof, vents, siding, gutters, garage doors. Oh yeah, exterior doors and garage doors. They talk about it in the same conversation. Foundations, windows, fences, decks, eaves. That's one thing I didn't say anything about, eaves, but you know, something to think about. You know, here's the one thing that I talk about when you design or place the building on a site. Be aware of where wildland vegetation is located, because this is what's going to create. This is what's going to burn down your house. So placement on sites. You know, talking about the 3 zones. You know, and you can kind of see. You know, you guys can pause this video whenever you guys want when you're watching it. I'm not going to make this video too long, but you know, it can kind of touch on a few things. You know, eliminate all combustible materials within 30 feet of the home. You know, go to you know, if you look at zone 2, place wood piles at least 30 feet from the building and store the wood in vegetation-free zones such as gravel areas. Now, that 30-foot rule seems to be one that we see a lot of in the codes. That when a building that's adjacent to another building, you don't have to have any fire resistive quality to the buildings, and that 30-foot rule seems to be very predominant in codes and regulations. So, and then zone 3, reduce fuels by thinning and pruning vegetation horizontally and vertically. So that tells you, if that tells you anything, that tells you don't have a lot of vegetation that dries out during the I guess the heat of the summer. The summer you got vegetation. I mean, when you're living up there in the mountains, you know, you're gonna have a lot of vegetation. It doesn't matter what it is, but you know, I think you have to make a conservative decision as to where that vegetation is going to be located. So that's something to think about. This is a great image. Birch stock prevents debris from accumulating on the tiles. So something to think about. Now they show tile roofs. Guess what? This is a great image. You know, it's like it's an old guideline. What's the best type of material? I think I said gypsum is very non-combustible because, you know, it resists. It's like a concrete tile. It's not going to burn. I mean, it's going to heat up to some degree, and then it'll eventually burn to some point. It's going to crack, and it's going to allow an amber or something to kind of get through. I mean, obviously it's not the strongest material, because if a limb came down and crashed on it, it is going to crack, and it's going to get to what's underneath, which is, you know, some sort of asphaltic or rubberized product that keeps water from getting into the house. You know, they talk about, you know, using some sort of flashing, you know, in valleys to prevent that any sort of accumulation of debris. Again, this is a guideline. That's 2008. You know, here's a more of a flat roof system, the roof membrane, and then they put that 5/8 gypsum board. And they say 5/8 gypsum board, but it technically it's called a cover board that's made out of gypsum, and it's specially made. It's specially made. Guys, we're not talking about grabbing the stuff that you put inside the walls that are made out of paper and put it on the roof. This is a specially made, it's cover board, and it doesn't have paper. It's like a fiberglass, non-combustible, they call it gypsum board, but it's called a cover board or a impact board, I think you call it. But it's still a product that's used for roofs. And you have polyisochondrite insulation, which I don't kind of agree 100% because you could maybe get away with doing a mineral wool, because mineral wool comes in different densities. So mineral wool is probably the best material when it comes to resisting fires. Mineral wool is used a lot in fire-rated walls to prevent, to reduce, to slow down. Now, the word prevent is pretty strong, but to slow down and reduce the passage of fire. Attic vents is something to think about, consider, where they're located, and the potential of something, kind of getting into it or burning or allowing some air movement. Eaves, solutions to eaves, how to avoid, potential hot gases and embers to getting in. Protecting, again, goes back to protecting the inside from the outside. Vinyl, here's a perfect example of what product not to use. Definitely not use vinyl. And that's another thing too here in Florida, and I get a lot of this from folks. It's like vinyl is just like a cosmetic thing. It's not intended to last a long time. Now, fiber cement panels like James Hardy, it is the next evolution or the next step up to using this vinyl siding. Now there are some high quality vinyl siding, but I'm not going to get into that. Here's an example of a fire rated wall assembly for an exterior. So you have your exterior covering, whatever it is. You can use stucco. It could be lath, it could be fiber cement, it could be metal. Again, it goes back to the metal, something that the amber can hit in drops. Again, if you have vegetation, you have sod, and you have, it's not a gravel bed, there's your amber. It just hit the wall, comes straight down, it's going to hit something. If you have something next to your house that's combustible, now you just create a wall of fire right underneath that wall. So you use the house wraps. House wraps are usually made out of some sort of vinyl, plastic, combustible material. Now there are some synthetic liquids, acrylic type of air barriers, because now we're talking about in the realm of air barriers instead of water barriers. Air barriers are more like water droplet resistive, and that allow, if anything gets moist inside the wall, to kind of dry out. So, and then of course you have gypsum and then wood sheathing. This is a double whammy when it comes to it. You could technically, we do this in non-residential, use they call it exterior grade sheathing, and it's a gypsum product, and it's a lot denser and it's got fiber in it, so it works almost like plywood or OSB or anything like that. Now they do make fire resistive plywood, so that's something you can use. And notice a lot of these walls, they're looking at conventional construction, so again, louvers to your attic, vents to your roof, locations that you can potentially have. Here's a solution that they have to louvers. This graphic was really good. It kind of shows you that picks a potential solution. It could be, maybe they have some sort of automatic, this one's a manual latching system. You just run around the house and you close them. I guess you're gonna have to get on top of a ladder. But debris in your gutters, that's probably number one. solution, leaf gardens. You don't spend the money, but you're gonna have to be the one that goes out there every so often, every seasonal, maybe twice during the winter, just to make sure you get the leaves out of there. Vinyl windows, vinyl frames, wrong. Aluminum, steel. You can even actually buy rated windows. 60 minutes, 45 minutes. You're talking about premium expense. You want more windows. You're next to nature. It's like you got the money, spend it. If you don't, find other solutions to protect the windows. And I think they talk about. Here's the image of where they talk about, the panes and how long it takes them to kind of shatter once the heat gets to them. This is something that I've seen here in Florida, and it's metal shutters. This one's probably a particular type that's more heat than impact. We do have accordion type shutters, and I'm sure that you could probably shop around and see if you can find one that you can just press a button and the system just comes down and closes the windows and protects your windows. If you had high windows, I would say protect the high window or use fire rated glazing in the high windows, and then on the lower windows, then you can put your manual shutters. You can put these shutters, which are, I'll be honest with you, and living in Florida, they're a pain in the butt. So if you can get the electronic ones or the manual ones that are just accordion, you can open and close. Doors, it's like just be aware of the products that you're using. How it can impact doors and seals to prevent that. Potentially having heat or smoke into the house. Because they talk about garage doors. Gives you a little idea of what you can encounter. The crawl space, foundations, preventing leaves and other debris from getting into the bottom, finding maybe ways to close them. Here in Florida, we have these like what they call flood vents. They open and close when there's water in areas where it floods. I don't know if they make any sort of like louvers that open and close. They may, when they sense heat, they may just automatically close. Something maybe I just hit $1 million idea. Just share it with me if you do go all the way. Open structures, close them or protect them, and one way or another, protect the exposed wood, protect the underside of the deck. Here they talk about how they have a deck. And they protect by adding a 5/8 type X gypsum to the underside of the flooring system. So that's something to think about. And then here they talk about outdoor decks and how it can impact your outdoor decks and solutions. It's like things to think about. Fire resistant skirting. Different type of lumber and different type maybe impregnated with some sort of resistant material or coating. Flashing around decks adjacent to houses, things to think about and plan. It's like these are decks. Like if you had a second floor deck, it's got pavers, it's got the waterproof membrane, which is again it goes either synthetic or rubberized or a asphaltic product. You're trying to keep that product from catching on fire. Again, they talk about concrete pavers, their solutions. Again, they have been solutions in the past. Just people need to be aware of where to look for this information. Here's an example of a building. This is one that talks about gates and good structures adjacent to houses and how they can initiate problems. Keeping everything clean around your fences. This one's an image of a sprinkler heads cover. They have concealed sprinkler heads and have exposed sprinkler heads. This is the nice thing about having the sprinkler system. You could always run the sprinkler system to the outside to your eave, and it can suppress fire to slow down the burn around the house. No, in that video that I saw, I didn't see no sprinkler heads, and it never talked about suppressing the fire with any sort of chemical to keep the building from catching on fire in any way or shape. But I'm a big believer in this. Here's exterior piping and systems to store fuel, protect them, know where to locate them, and then this is the planning. This is the type of images the FEMA guideline had for planning the neighborhoods. It's like roadways, making sure they have a certain width for emergency vehicles, distances from gates to main thoroughfares, and having places that the truck can actually turn about. T-shapes is one that they actually are comfortable using, and of course solutions for fire extinguisher connecting points where they can actually get water from maybe a lake or a river or something like that. And again, guys, and that kind of sums it up real quick. And I hope you guys if you guys have any questions, I'll try to give you guys a link on the information below of where you can actually go to the FEMA website to get this one and many more. So thank you guys for showing up. And hey guys, just wanted to give a big shout for everybody that stuck around to the end. If you could go ahead and give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll have more videos. And stay tuned for the next episode, because I'm going to be talking about the Sky Bar that's coming to Pensacola. Check it out, guys. See you next time.